Welcome to the Try Ones podcast. Today, my guests are beach volleyball pros, Evan, Cory, and Logan Webber. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How about you?
Yeah, doing great. Doing great.
Excellent. I'm stoked to talk to you guys. The beach cowboys. I didn't bring my Western stuff. So I had them out. I'm like, nah, I'll dress differently.
Yeah, I mean, we figured we'd bring enough for the three of us. So.
If you saw my garage, I got enough for more than three.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
How did the beach cowboys come about? Well, let me start with Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then Louisiana is not exactly the hotbed of beach volleyball. So how did
Yeah, well, we so a lot of it came down to when the COVID years happened with volleyball, and I was living out here for since like October of 2018 at that point. And when COVID started, I moved back to Michigan, and I was basically just flying to any tournament that was happening in the United States. And a lot of those were in like Ohio or Kentucky, just random Midwest states that had tournaments because they were able to run them. And Evan basically did the same thing for that whole year. And we played against each other three times.
Yeah, I think even more, maybe like 4 or 5, like throughout the whole year is a lot.
Yeah.
And he beat me like all 4 of those. And I was like, wow, he's really good. Like, I should play with that guy. So we played in a tournament in just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. Maybe, what was that, October of 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that like Medina, Brunswick? Where are you at down? Do you remember?
It was called Sandbox.
Okay. And it's Broadview Heights, I think.
Broadview Heights, yeah.
That's where my whole family's from, Ohio. So.
Okay. Oh, nice, yeah. So yeah, we played in that tournament and won it and did well, and then we played a bunch of stuff in Florida, kind of that winter, a couple of the bigger tournaments, and we actually weren't doing super well at that point. We went to a tournament in San Antonio and got like a 5th, which was kind of disappointing for the level of tournament it was. And the AVP was just starting to come back, and they had like a big event in New Orleans, where he's from, and we played that, and I'm not really sure if we would have done poorly in that if we would have kept playing or not, because it was just like a lot of 5ths and a lot of 7ths up to that point, and we didn't really feel like we were breaking through. And we were like the 11 seed going into that tournament and ended up winning it.
Oh, nice.
And neither of us had ever won a tournament that big, and it was whenever people ask me like one of my favorite volleyball experiences, that was always one of mine, because it was at Coconut Beach where Evan like grew up playing, and to win it like with him and have that be like a kind of breakout moment. Yeah, it was pretty crazy, just like seeing all the support and all the love that people had for him there, especially because we hadn't had a big tournament in years.
But last year you guys didn't partner up, and then now this year you're partnering up. So I've been dying to ask this question: how weird? Pro volleyball is kind of weird that way, because like Dahlhauser could play with Casey Patterson for a couple tournaments and then someone else. But like you guys played against each other, with each other, and then against each other, and now with each other again. How weird is that?
It's really weird. I think it was good though for us. We obviously grew a lot together in 2021, but then this past year, 2022, we're both at that point on tour full time. Yeah. We both got enough points. Both our partners kind of helped us get into that main draw to start the year, and then I think for me, I'm sure for him as well, like just having somebody older, somebody who's been there before, somebody who's been in and out of all of like the weird parts of the game and stuff like that, just helped to kind of really learn how to conduct yourself, I guess, and how to go about your business and stuff process, like that. Yeah. In that year, and we kind of talked probably around Chicago last year, so like September of last year we talked, and we're like, hey, like it's kind of the end of the year. I felt pretty good about my year, but let's team back up. Yeah. And then we played a couple events at the very end of the year in October, November-ish, and did pretty well. And so we're like, all right, let's run it back for 2023.
But I was just wondering, like because you travel together and you play with each other. So when you were playing against each other, were you like, hey, when he signals this way or that way?
I mean, once the game starts, it's definitely like
It's just game
any
on.
tendency that I know of his, like I'm going to use it against him no matter
Absolutely.
what. Like I'm going to
You're
tell
blocking
John,
him,
I'm going to
so-
tell John who I played with,
Yeah.
you know, like, hey, Evan does this in this situation, and you know, he would do the same thing for
That's
me.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
But yeah, it was always kind of in the back of my head because when Hayden called me last October, whenever it was, he basically said like, this is my last year on tour.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to play this year, like I'll play this year, and then I'm pretty much gonna be done. So in my mind, I was always kind of like, I want to do this, get my experience, and then I was always thinking in the back of my head like, hopefully Evan has a good year, but not so good of a year that he wants to keep playing with the same partner. So yeah, in the back of my mind, it was always kind of like part of the plan.
He's the reason your partner got cramps, though.
Oh yeah.
Logan's fault. Because
All
you
my
guys
fault.
were looking really good.
Snuck some stuff in his drinks.
Exactly.
Yeah, I stole all of Dave's
Logan's
bananas.
like, cramps.
No, it was always kind of part of a plan. And to your point, like we travel with each other so
Yeah.
much that it helps to be very good friends with your
Yeah.
partner as well. I mean, even when we weren't playing with each other, we were still pretty good friends on tour.
So
and-
without naming names, have you ever had a partner where you're just like, God, I hate traveling with this guy because he snores, he's
the snoring was a big part of me with one partner,
Yeah,
and luckily I only played one tournament with him. But I was like, man, I don't know if like this is a big
I
factor
mean,
in our
it's a big deal,
relationship.
though,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
potentially.
Yeah, I think a big thing too, especially for us, there's not a lot of guys on tour our age. Like
Yeah.
we're the youngest team, I think, like combined age on tour.
Yeah.
So finding people our age that kind of similar interests, grew up like around
Sure.
that same time frame. I think there's a big generational gap between like most of the
Yeah.
guys on tour and like where we're at. There's like most people are probably in their mid 30s now, like
Yeah.
that are
Or
that
even
are on
late,
tour.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's like a 10-year age gap, and you know, just kind of connecting can be hard at some of those points.
I gotcha. I'm the old guy at my work now. Kind of weird. When I started, I was a young guy. Now I'm the old guy. I'm like, oh man.
yeah. When people would ask me that about like traveling with John, I mean, I love
Yeah.
playing with John. I love traveling with John, but I always made the joke that I had more in common with John's kids than I did with John.
Hey, man,
Which was
I'm with you.
100% accurate. Like I would go to Nashville for a few weeks at a
Oh,
time to
that's
train with
different.
him, which was a blast. But I was like, yeah, I'm gonna probably hang out with your kids more than I'm gonna.
I'm
hang
going
out
down to
with you.
Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it was a great experience. Like Evan said, like just playing with two partners that have
Yeah.
consistent. I mean, John's been doing this professionally for longer than I've been alive, so just to kind of learn.
That's
from
kinda
him,
weird, huh?
It was a good. Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It's like, yeah, I started playing pro indoor in like '94, and I was like, I was born in '95.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, that's when you feel old. I always tell, I feel fine until I get around my daughter's friends because they're 27 and 29. You know, so I'm like, oh my god, like my youngest is older than both of you guys. So
Yeah.
it's just weird. It's kind of, and then I start looking at NFL players, and they're like 22, 23, 24, and I've talked to some on the show, and they're talking about being retired at 25, 26. I go, no, you're not retired. You got fired, and now you need to find a new job.
You need to find a new gig. Yeah.
That's all it is. How tough is that in volleyball? I mean, you guys are kind of in the same boat without the bigger checks.
Yeah, I mean it's just a very interesting dynamic because you always
Yeah.
kind of have to have some sort of plan B in the back of your mind.
Yep.
And luckily, basically the battle is to always get to the point where you can just sustain yourself to keep playing volleyball.
Yeah.
So if you take the last few years, you know, at least for me, it's like I basically am just betting on myself that in the future I'm going to do well. And I'm basically just playing volleyball so I can fund the volleyball back.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always that idea of it's like, well, I'm kind of on shaky ground, but at the same time, we kind of trade that financial security that people that have a full-time job, like we trade that security for the freedom to be able to go out on the beach every day and do what we love. And I think that's kind of the thing that's always kept me just like driving and wanting to play is when, you know, I have friends from high school that, you know, settled down immediately and they
Yeah.
have full-time jobs and a house. And it's like, you know, that's great for their path that they chose, but it's like, that's the sacrifice that we make. And it's hard to call it a sacrifice because we get to go to the beach every day and that's our office and we play a kid's game.
But it is a sacrifice.
It is.
Because
you lose that little bit of security, but at the same
Yeah.
time, like you gain the freedom. And for me, at least, and Evan's kind of in the same boat, it's like, this is the time in our lives where we have the ability to go out and do this.
And it feels like, I mean, I'm sure he feels the same way, but this year kind of feels like a year where we can kind of break through that, like, all right, we're not like relying on this tournament.
Yeah.
We don't have to win this tournament. We don't have to take a certain place. We're starting to be a little bit more well known. You know, there's a little bit more sponsorship opportunity, and so it kind of feels like we've grinded for me. It's been since COVID, so 3 years now of like really, really like tough work of, all right, this is like getting to the position to where now I can like try and thrive rather than just survive for the year.
When you're doing coaching clinics, you're doing other things. But
Yeah.
it's still volleyball, but it's
Yeah, I would say Evan and I combined probably do more of the like extra coaching. And
Yeah.
I mean, we do, volleyball vacations in Turks and Caicos. We do some in Mexico. I work with a company called Better at Beach, and I do 4 or 5 weeks of that every off season. So we've been fortunate enough to have these connections with the people that run those that kind of like sustains us through the off season a bit.
yeah. But there are connections, but you have to earn them.
Yes.
Because Mark, in a heartbeat, if you weren't a good person, he would say,
Yes,
You're out.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also just cool for us to be able to kind of build a fan base through
Sure.
those as well. I mean, a lot of the people that not only like sponsor us, but just, will wake up at 3 a.m. to watch our match in Dubai and send
well,
us
it's a little
message.
unfair for Evan, though. When I took this picture, I'm sitting there going, God, his fans are screaming, and they're right behind me. I'm like, what's going on? I look over, it's all girls, of course. And I'm like, all right. And then I go on his Instagram, I'm like, oh, that's his girlfriend. I go, okay. I'm like, that's why she's yelling. Go. I'm like, these people are getting hyped up, man.
So if you want to know about how crazy Evan's fans are for him, there's a good story from that New Orleans tournament we were talking about. So we're playing the semifinal, and it's like pretty late in the afternoon, so everybody's had like a decent amount to drink that's standing around watching the game.
Well lubricated is how I like to call it.
And there's probably 100, 200 people. We're on one of the side courts because they didn't put us on stadium for some reason. So we have there's like 5 or 6 people deep all around this court. And we're in like a technical timeout in the second set. And all of a sudden, like, there's a big commotion over by the other team's like players box. And we're like, what just happened? And the guy we're playing walks over. He goes, yeah, I was sitting there and some guy was talking trash behind me.
Yeah.
And I like turned around and said something to him, and he came up and just smacked me in the face. And I was like, what? And it was like one of Evan's best friends. And I was like, man, these people
Allegedly.
are insane.
Yeah.
No, it was it was just crazy. Like those people in New Orleans know how to get rowdy.
Well, I was going to ask you, because there was a little, I think it was Atlanta, right?
Fort Lauderdale is probably what you're gonna say.
Yeah. With Hayden
And Taylor.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Out
probably
of all the tournaments I've watched, I've never seen that.
I hadn't either. I mean,
I don't think anyone in volleyball really ever has.
I mean, I've been watching Karch Karai, Timmons back in the 80s.
I think the closest thing that comes to it is Karch tearing the guy off the ref stand, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah, I
a
mean,
little intense.
it's funny because it got the news of that spread everywhere.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
playing like a world tour event just outside of Vienna back in August, and some random guy from the Czech Republic that spoke like no English walks up
He
to
knew
me
that
and he
one.
goes, "You played with Hayden this year?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "Yep." And he goes, "What happened with him and Taylor?" And I was like, "How do you know about this?
Yeah.
Like you are in the Czech Republic."
Well, it's so random, so
Yeah.
very random.
No, it was. I mean,
I was going to say maybe it was one of Evan's fans.
No, apparently people just want to fight people when they play with me. I don't know, but
You'll find out.
yeah.
We'll see in 2023 if the trend continues.
Yeah. No, that was a pretty crazy turn of events, but
Yeah.
it was so hot that weekend, and that was like our 6th match of the tournament.
Yeah.
And Taylor like bounces this last ball to win the game, and I was like passed out on the ground.
Yeah.
I was like, I might need
Whatever.
medical attention.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I look over and I see like big Rich Lamborn and big Josh Glazebrook, and then like Hayden and Taylor. And I look over, I'm like, I'm not going to be any help against Rich Lamborn.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to lay here on the ground and let this happen.
That was crazy, though. It seems like, and I don't follow the Norseca or FIVB.
FIVB.
Yeah.
I don't follow those, but AVP, obviously. It seems like there's going to be a changing of the guards, almost.
That's kind of what it feels like. I mean, and just like I was saying, it feels like the majority of the tour is kind of at least in their mid-30s now, and you're starting to see some more young guys break through, have some really big tournaments here and there, and I think it will probably either be this year or the next where we're going to really start seeing some of the younger teams start winning, start doing a lot better. And some of these older guys, you'll probably start saying, all right, like I'm starting to take a little more consistently, like these 9ths and 13ths. And so I feel like they'll probably start phasing out on their own. But I really do think the changing of the guard, and especially on the F5AB internationally, like everybody, I mean, most of the people in their 30s are like on their way out. And the best team in the world is 25, 26 with Norway.
Like Partain.
Mm-hmm.
Like I saw you guys practice with him, but like he's going to be a huge competitor coming up.
Yeah.
How weird. I mean, to me, like I played football.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. That'd be like Ohio State practicing against Michigan
Right.
in the off season. You're like, that would never happen. And then you guys are out banging away and hitting.
It's just such an interesting dynamic, especially once you get to like a certain level, because there's only so many teams that actually like get you better at practice. You know what I mean? So for me, it's basically like if we're going to do a competitive practice, I only want maybe one of like 6 or 7 teams in the country that we actually like want to train against to try and get better. So it's a really strange dynamic, especially on the AVP, because on the world tour, it's like,
well, then you're talking.
You're playing people from all over the place.
I was saying you might not even see them in the tournament, but like if you're playing the top 6, 7 teams, every AVP that you go to, you're probably gonna see that team at some point. So it's like it's like a double-edged sword of like, we're getting better, but also they're learning our tendencies and stuff like that. But I think it's a necessary evil. Like,
but like they were going a lot of I never played volleyball, but going on 2 with the jump set.
Yeah.
Right. That was kind of their, and then I saw you guys practicing it with them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the new, like, everybody thinks that's going to be the future of beach volleyball. And they're probably right, is like that, the idea of like
more indoor
jump setting and hitting on 2. And just because the blockers are getting so much bigger, the defenders are getting faster. So if you play very traditional, if you think of it in like football terms, like if you're just running the ball up the middle every single time.
You don't see the wing tee in the NFL anymore.
Right. Yeah.
We actually ran that in high school. I hated
exactly.
that. But anyway, that's a whole different story. We literally played the wing tee on offense. Anyway, traveling wise, I've told so many people the most traveled people I meet are volleyball players by far.
100%.
I mean, NFL players, Olympians, volleyball players, you guys get to go to the best places. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think, and the thing, if you really look at like the football players, basketball players, they're traveling to at max 29 cities around the country every year, and those cities don't ever change.
Especially we went to Buffalo this last weekend.
And it's like, we got to go to Buffalo. Woohoo! Yeah, like in like 2 feet of snow. No, so but like for us, like the tour changes. I'd probably say every 2 to 3 years, there's like at least 2 to 3 new stops on the AVP, and then the World Tour, there's probably 5 to 10 new stops every year. So I mean, you're really getting to go and travel and see new places every single year, especially on the World Tour. That like just opens up the opportunities to a whole different level. And for us, we're at least on the road for, I'd want to say, half the year, so that's 27 weekends. Where we're traveling somewhere. So that is 27 new cities almost every single year. Probably, I think I traveled to 7 or 8 countries this past year. And with Olympic qualifying starting in 2023, that's just going to even be bigger. We'll probably go 10, 15 countries this year.
Yeah, it's interesting on the World Tour as well, because the stops aren't always like big tourist places. It's not somewhere that you were like, oh, I'm going to go on vacation to Europe. I'm going to go to this place. I mean, obviously there's an event in Paris, and there's an event in, Paris might be actually one of the biggest like cities, but we went to Dubai for 2 weeks, and it was like,
well, that's pretty cool.
It was awesome, but it's not like a normal, like, oh, I'm going to go on vacation to Dubai, or some of the cities in Mexico that we go to. It's not,
smaller.
It's not Cancun every single time, or like the kind of touristy place. It's like La Paz, Mexico, which is a small little city, or we went to Tlaxcala, which is an hour and a half outside of Mexico City.
Which is where the World Championships are at this year.
Yeah. So it's just interesting, because you get to kind of see a little bit more of like what actual like local culture looks like, more than just the like, here's the beach resort, we're going to stay here the whole time.
Actually, do you try to book in extra time? Because like for me, I used to go when I would go to North Dakota or wherever, I'd get in at this time, go to work, come home, and that was it. And then I get home, people are like, hey, did you go see this? And I'm like, no, I was there for work. Like,
Yeah.
now I book in extra time.
I always feel like we try. I go a little bit early just to get my body acclimated as well.
Yeah.
But I always think it's important to at least like have one day where we're going and seeing something, because like we might as well take advantage
You
of
might
like
not
our
ever
job,
go back,
right?
especially if it's one of
Like,
the small cities.
Yeah, I was gonna say we go like somewhere like Dubai. Like I don't know if I'm ever gonna go to Dubai again.
Yeah.
Like let's go see the tallest building in the world. Like
Yeah.
so like there's like I always feel like I try and like have a day where like there's enough time in between the tournaments so we're still able to focus on what we need to focus on.
Yeah.
But like we're gonna take a good chunk out of our day to go and like explore, see the culture of this area. Because I think that's also really important in like just development
agree.
of your life, right? Like we're getting to see how different like people live differently than us and stuff like that.
And the food. The other thing I noticed when I travel, like I would go to Louisville. I went to Louisville one year for like a week, and they're like, "Hey, did you go see the Muhammad Ali Museum? Did you go to Louisville Bat Museum? Did you go downtown? Did you go to the riverboat?" And I'm like, I didn't even know that was there.
Yeah.
Like literally, I just went to work. It was the North American Livestock Expo. Worked every day. I got tired. Didn't go out at night. Came home. I went back for the farm machinery show, and I went to the museums. I did all that, and so like I swung Louisville Slugger bats, and it was cool. So
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic as well, because you almost have to schedule like those days that
Yeah.
Evan were talking about before the tournament, because a lot of the time, at least for me, like
you guys don't
once
know.
we lose and we're done, it's like I want to just be home at this point.
Get out.
Yeah, like when we were in Dubai, I was supposed to stay in Dubai after we lost for another like 2 days. I was like, I'm gonna pay this massive
I'm
like
done.
change because I've been in Dubai for 2 weeks and I just want to go home.
Well, 2 weeks, long time.
So like you said, we're on the road for so long as well.
Yeah.
Like as cool as it is to like, I love seeing everything as well. But for me, it's not a vacation. You know what I mean? So
I know exactly what you mean.
we have to go, and for me, if I had a week vacation, I would spend it in my apartment in Hermosa, because that's where like
That's what people don't understand that travel.
yeah.
That don't travel. Because like I tell my wife, like if I'm gone for 2 weeks at a time, and I come home, like I need one night. I know you haven't gone out in 2 weeks, but I need one night, man. I just want the bed, a cooked meal at
I was
home.
gonna say I think that is like the least like valued thing is like a home cooked meal.
Yeah.
Not eating from a restaurant or
Oh my
anything.
God.
Oh man.
I spent 16 days every year at the rodeo in Vegas. And all my young friends are like, "Oh, you're so lucky." And I'm like, 16 days in Vegas in a hotel with not even a refrigerator gets old.
Yeah.
It's like, I just want a meal. Like, I'll go off strip just to get a meal that's somewhat affordable.
Yeah. Evan's a big chef guy. I mean, me, not so much. I make like pasta and chicken, but yeah, Evan's a big,
Yeah, I don't know,
You're
just-
a master chef.
You have to go with me on Thursday. Got a Australian meat. Guys
Oh.
importing Australian meats from New Zealand, Tasmania, and Australia
Wow.
into the States. So I'm gonna go try some Wagyu beef or all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The
Oh,
first
yeah.
time I visited New Orleans, we had dinner
Oh, see, that's different.
at his coach's house.
Yeah.
And we walk in and it's like 6 different kinds of meat.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's like meat's the appetizer and the
And
actual
entree
dinner
and
and
the
the
dessert.
dessert.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think I've never eaten this amount of meat in my entire life, but it was so good.
I went to St. Charles.
Mm.
I'd never been to Louisiana before, so we opened up a store in Port Arthur in Texas, and I drove up, and I'm like, I want to go to Louisiana. I've never seen a swamp, the whole thing. So I spent the day. The nicest people, by far. North Dakota was nice too, but people in Louisiana. I go to this Cajun restaurant. It was on a Sunday at night. No one in the restaurant. I'm like, are you guys open? They're like, yeah, but people really don't eat in restaurants on Sundays.
No, it's
They
like
eat at
family
home.
meal.
So
Yeah.
they were doing a lot of pickups. And so I'm sitting there and they're like, have you ever had, I go, no, it's my first time. And they're like, oh, should have never said that. We're going to bring you out a little of everything. I'm like, are you kidding? So this catfish gumbo, other gumbo, crackling, this, that. And like, okay, what do you want to order? I'm like,
You're like, that wasn't the meal?
well, I just ate, And so I ate more, and then I'm getting ready to leave. And the lady's like, do you want dessert? I'm like, I didn't even finish my meal. Like, I got to go. And she's like, well, we could put it in a blender, mix it up, and you can drink it on the way back. And I'm like, oh my God. Because it was like a piece of cake and some ice cream or something. they were going to put it in a blender. We hit on the road. I'm like, no, I'm good. Yeah. So how important is diet for you guys? I mean, you're young, so you're burning whatever you eat off, but are you cautiously aware when you're at work?
For me, I've just constantly been trying to put on weight since I was like 12 years old.
Yeah.
I played football all 4 years of high school, and my football coach in high school used to walk around the cafeteria at lunch, and he would grab all of the food that people didn't eat and like bring it to me. And he'd be like, you have to eat all of this before you stand up. And I was like, all right. So for me, like I've been trying to cook more of my own food, especially when I'm here, when I can actually like take advantage of being able to do that.
Get some tips from him.
Yeah, exactly.
He just
I do. I come over and eat dinner. Yeah. But yeah, for me, it's just trying to like sustain my weight so I can gain some sort of like strength, especially in the off season. Because that's always been my difficult thing. I mean, I've been lifting weights consistently since I was 13 or 14 years old, playing football in high school, and just never been able to put on weight. So for me, it's a different problem than what most people have.
Dude, I wrestled in football, so my coach was trying to get me to bulk up. Or football season would end, I go to wrestling. He's like, cut weight.
Yeah.
So that's on the spectrum where I'm like falling. Like I want to say, I don't know if there's anybody on tour that's heavier than I am.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, there's maybe one or two people that are probably pushing around where the same I'm at. But
Ty Warren's pretty thick.
Yeah, I was gonna say that he tries one of the few people I think is probably close maybe to where I'm at. Theo is maybe
don't need to call out Theo.
Is maybe one or the other, but Theo's also just a big guy. Like he's like your height and he's big.
Yeah.
But so I'm like have to be pretty conscious on the road of trying
the food. He has to be conscious.
Well, it's funny because when we were playing with each other in 2021, whenever we would travel, I would always eat like 3/4 of my food and then give him the other quarter. And he would eat a meal and a quarter. And so we're trying to flip that this year and have me eat more of his food, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
Good luck.
But I think that like just like we were saying with the home cooked meal and stuff, whenever you're going out traveling and eating in these places, like it's pretty hard to find like a healthy meal that's one like affordable, and then like I mean that's just like the big thing. Like if we can find an affordable healthy meal, that's probably the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Because like health is the one thing, and then two, like finding it where you're not breaking the bank is the other. I think the good thing is probably when you go and travel to like some of these other countries, you're not having a lot of processed food.
That's huge.
You're having like most other countries are eating healthier than we do in America in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then most other countries are also cheaper than us. So it does help. But like finding those places, especially when you don't speak the language, is the other difficult part.
But you guys, the translators on your phones, right?
That's
Yeah.
Because I just used that for my work the other day.
Yeah.
Guy didn't speak any English. I'm like, we're going back and forth.
It's pretty incredible that you can like take a picture of a menu and it
Yeah.
translates every word on the menu into English. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. But that's why we go to Mexico. Mexico usually we were there 3 times last year.
Yeah.
Multiple times in Mexico.
Yeah.
Mexico is great because I love Mexican food and everything costs like
cheap.
You get a taco
Affordable.
for 25 cents US dollar, and I was like, man, I could just eat everything and only spend like $10. But then you go to some other Dubai wasn't as expensive as I thought it was going to be, but we kind of found one restaurant in Dubai that was like pretty good food but also pretty cheap, and we just went to that same restaurant over and over and over. Yeah.
That's what you want to share to your other friends, or you don't want to share it because you don't want
the other people to know about it.
40 volleyball players all in the same restaurant. Meals. That would not be good.
Yeah, Dubai was really interesting. Our hotel was right across the street from like the biggest mall in Dubai.
Yeah.
So they had every like Western restaurant that you can think of there. But it was interesting to me how Westernized Dubai was, because I'd never been to the Middle East before, and I just really didn't know what to expect. And Dubai was such like such an internationally like diverse place that it was. I mean, you could find any kind of food that you wanted to in Dubai, and it was all pretty good.
The guy I had on the show, he's in Dubai right now, opening up his business there. So I'm seeing all the posts and all that. I'm like, wow. Wow.
Dubai is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I explain it as a place that you need to go see it just because it's pretty incredible. But like for me, I'm not a like huge like city person. Like I don't like big cities like New York City. Like that's probably like one of my like lower places on the list of where I want to go.
Yeah.
Just because I do like nature, like going out and seeing stuff, and I'd kind of like compare Dubai to that. It's just so grandeur and like everything is just. I mean, it's impressive the amount of money that's put into it, but it's like you need to see it once, but I like did not personally need to go see it again.
I've been in New York City once. I didn't even go into Manhattan. I was there for work, and I stayed in Fort Lee, New Jersey, went across, and then I went to Brooklyn, Queens, and then I came back to Fort Lee. Never went to Manhattan. I'm like, I'm good. I don't need to.
Yeah, New York is I hope that New York was one of my favorite stops. So like 2019, I think 18 and 19 they had an AVP in New York, and then the last couple of years they haven't. But the nice thing for us traveling there is that you can just take the subway everywhere. So you don't have to Uber places. You don't have to rent a car. You can just go there, take the subway right to the venue, take the subway back to the hotel.
Chicago?
Chicago is probably my favorite stop every year, I would say, just because I grew up in Michigan, so it's a 3-hour drive from Grand Rapids where I grew up. So that's the one where most of my family and some of my friends are actually
able to drive down. I think it was Mark or maybe it was Casey that said that the crowd there is phenomenal.
Incredible.
Like I mean, because in my head I'm like Chicago. I mean, like you don't think beach volleyball Chicago.
Yeah.
But they said the fans that know it, that go there are they're in it.
And I'd also say probably that what helps is Chicago has a huge indoor scene.
Okay.
So I mean that's at least going to help just from the volleyball standpoint. Yeah. But I think Chicago shows out every year. It's pretty packed, and it's also like Labor Day weekend, so most people are gonna have off. And then they actually have like pretty decent beaches. So like there's people that just go to the beach, like where the event's at, and they're like, oh, like here's a volleyball tournament. So it's like it has some like pretty good foot traffic as well.
That's Huntington, Hermosa, Manhattan, same way.
Yeah, I would say Chicago is probably the second most well-attended event every year, only to Manhattan, I would say.
That's insane.
Maybe Hermosa.
I was going to say it's probably tied with Hermosa. Probably pretty close.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty crazy. You were talking about food process. My niece lives in Paris, lives there for 9 years. She never gained any weight, and she eats everything because it's all fresh. So she doesn't eat a lot of processed foods, and she can eat whatever she wants. She's a dancer, so she has to be consciously aware of her.
Yeah, I remember the first time I flew, I had like a connecting flight in Germany maybe, and I went to just the like bakery in the airport, and I was like, this is better than any airport food I've seen in the United States my entire life. I was like, this is crazy. Everything's like fresh baked bread and like, good sandwiches. Like this is way better than any airport in the United States.
And I think once you like have food like that, you're like, whoa, like you don't realize like how good like fresh fruit is or stuff like, you know what I mean? Like just because you've never had it before, so you don't even know like the difference in the taste, but it's crazy. Like once you're like exposed to it, like the difference in it.
So as a foodie, do you actively go out and look for fresh food or restaurants or what?
So internationally it's tough because you just don't really know. In the US though, I'll probably like I try and do like one meal like at every AVP like from that area, like locally, just like, and I'll just break the bank. I don't care. I don't also like the health bank too. Like I'll go eat all the good stuff. Like in Chicago, go get me some good pizza. In Texas and Austin, I went to a really, really good barbecue place. Went to Terry Black's. Man, that was incredible. I love me some brisket. So
if you go to Nashville again, Peg Leg Porkers.
Okay.
Just south of Broadway. Been there twice. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I love
He's
Nashville.
a literal peg leg.
Like, Nashville is a really, really cool city. I like Nashville.
Great food.
Yeah, I would say if I could add a stop on the AVP anywhere, it would probably be Nashville.
That
would be cool if they did that, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know what, I'm trying to think of how big the turnout would be.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It would just kind of depend on where they were able to put the venue.
If they put it down by the football field.
That's exactly. I was thinking like you do a Nashville stop, you do it in the stadium, like the stadium parking lot.
Yeah.
That already like you already have a ton of parking around there, and then Nashville is like
right across the
really
bridge.
to a lot of different cities in the Southeast. So I mean, like there's a lot of like Louisville's not super far. Cincinnati's not super far. Knoxville's not hard. Memphis, So like I think it would actually be pretty successful because you just have a lot of those like surrounding cities.
Well, and it has the hotels to accommodate you guys.
Yeah, so I think like the surrounding cities like would just all flood in for that weekend, I think that could be a pretty successful one.
Well,
Be good for the beach cowboy image.
It would be.
that's what I'm saying.
Go on a rooftop bar, just hit up Tootsies.
Which one? Jeez. That's what's crazy. You know, I've been there a few times now. My daughter lives outside of Knoxville, and she's pregnant. So, but it's nuts to go to, you know, because you go be in the suburbs and it's just normal.
Yeah.
And then you go to Broadway just about any time, any day. We went during COVID, packed.
Yep.
Packed. Like you had to wear a mask to get in, and then you're like, everyone's like, yeah, okay, because you're drinking.
Yeah, I think
Not because you're in the South.
no, my brother-in-law works at Marriott, so I get I'm very fortunate to have like his family discount. So I've kind of become a big hotel snob over the last couple of years. And my favorite hotel I've ever been to is a hotel just off of Broadway in Nashville, and it's just like the coolest vibe of any hotel I've ever had. They have like the live music at the bar, and then the whole hotel is themed as like a country music hotel. And I was like, this is so cool.
We stayed at one. It had two different music venues. So it had a bar and then a live music with a singer-songwriter just with his guitar. And then downstairs in the restaurant had a full stage with bands and everything. And I'm like, so there was like in a crazy, and we were off. We were just west of Broadway.
Yeah.
And like really good musicians playing for free. You're like, okay.
We stayed in the Drake Hotel in Chicago.
Nice.
That's where the like Players Hotel is every year.
Yeah.
And we had both lost. And I remember we sat in the like bar in the lobby of the Drake, and they had like these two old like blues kind of guys.
It's almost like a Frank
down
Sinatra
there.
type singers,
and we just like sat there with his parents because his parents came and visited, and we just like sat there and listened to him like the whole night. And I was like, that was actually really cool. Yeah.
But I was going to ask you, I've seen some of your adventures with traveling. He's even taller. As you know, my oldest daughter's 5 foot tall, so she has the exact opposite issues.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like her feet don't hit the ground in some seats, and she can't reach the overhead bin. You know, what are the issues you guys have being 6'3" and 6'7", 6'8"?
I mean,
I think legroom is the obvious one.
Yeah. The legroom's tough. That's definitely the biggest thing. Just when I'm coming home from tournaments, I don't really care that much, so I won't go out of my way to like pay $100 extra for an exit row if I'm on the way home. Yeah. Going to tournaments, if I get stuck in the wrong seat, it could literally like ruin my knees for the next week.
Yeah.
So I don't want to. Usually going to going to tournaments, I'm like, I need to have some sort of legroom, and usually, like if I don't have a good seat, flight attendants are usually aware enough to be like, this guy's really tall, he should probably not be sitting there, because some seats I literally don't fit in. Like, I mean, it's like that, and I was like, this cannot be right. I always tell people there needs to be like some sort of caveat in air travel that if you're like over 6'6", that you like you should get an exit row without having to pay for it, something like that.
I agree with that. I'll go with that.
But yeah, I mean,
then you can have those guys that are 6'5" going.
Yeah.
What about cowboy boots? I'll be 6'6".
And then I walk past the like 5'2" woman sitting in the exit row. I'm just like, why are you sitting there?
I would love to be where you're at.
No, it's good though. I still, regardless of how much I travel, I still absolutely love it. Like when I have an off weekend and I'm just like at home, I'm like, I thought this was going to be a lot more fun than it is. When I was like, oh yes, I have an off weekend, and then I get to the off weekend, it's like, I wish I was going somewhere.
Well, I'm the same way. Like during COVID, it was rough for me because in my head for 10 years, if I'm not on the road, I'm not making money. I'm 100% commission. So in my day job, so if I'm not selling and like actually selling, I'm not making money. Kind of.
Yeah.
You know. So in my head, it's like I'm stuck at home. I'm stuck at home at COVID. And I'm like, I'm not making any money. It's like, and then there was like 2 weeks. That'll be 4 weeks. That'll be 8 weeks. That'll be. I was like,
well, traveling during COVID was pretty crazy because, like I said, I would just find any tournament anywhere, even if it was just like somebody in their backyard was having. We
played in Iowa. That one was pretty crazy.
We went to like all these states that like nobody usually runs tournaments there. Yeah. And if they do, there's like 8 teams that come out, and all of a sudden there's 45 open teams going to tournaments in Ohio, and You know,
Everyone's
they're
looking
lasting
somewhere to
till
go.
3 a.m. But
It's almost like a full on, like there's like main draw teams going. It's like really fun. So it's like
Yeah.
a legit tournaments.
Were you guys just dominating for the most part though? Those,
I mean, those tournaments were not easy. They were just grinds because we played each other in a Cincinnati tournament, and I think the finals started at like 2:30 a.m.
Ooh.
because it was one day with like 48 men's teams.
So you're starting at 8 a.m. Like you're almost
Yeah.
playing like full like
Yeah.
24 hours of volleyball.
Yeah, that was crazy though. But flying during that was pretty wild because I went
Yeah.
on 3 or 4 flights where I was the only
Only
person on the
person,
plane.
yeah.
And it was just like me and the one flight attendant.
I did that to
this
Dallas.
Is so strange. Yeah.
I was like, someone's not making money today.
Yeah.
I was just pointing. I'm like, there's no one on this flight. Like,
yeah.
forget. I don't need a. I'm usually just excited when there's no one next to me.
Right. And now I'm like, there's
I
not
got the whole row.
Yeah, I have the entire plane.
Yeah, yeah. Flying private for once.
Yeah, I remember walking through the Cincinnati airport. I went to college in Cincinnati, so it was kind of my like second home. And I would walk through the airport, and you wouldn't see any. You'd see the one person at the ticket thing that would like your check-in person. You'd see 2 people at the TSA counter, and then you wouldn't see another person until you got to your gate, and it would be the same gate person that was working the
Isn't
check-in
that
desk.
weird?
And you're like, I've seen 4 people the entire time I've been
I
in the
did
airport.
that at LAX at Southwest Terminal 1.
Mm.
Like there was no one in there. And I literally, are they open?
Yeah,
Like, there was
you felt like
no
you
one
shouldn't be
there.
there. You're like,
Yeah.
am I allowed to do this right now?
There was no one there. It was weird. I was at the baggage. I always go to the baggage and then go up. And I go up and there's just like 6 people. I'm like, what the?
Yeah, I almost
It's
never
LAX.
came back to LAX, but people were like, yeah, you could just drive through the loop at LAX and see no other cars. And I was
Nothing.
like, that sounds great. Like, I wish
we
it was
wanted to
still like
roller
that.
skate down the Vegas Strip. We just never made it over because you could go down the strip with no cars.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah, so we should have done it. We didn't know how long it was going to last. What I've flown into what's Twin Falls, Idaho. They only have 2 flights a day there. They have one in the morning that comes in and then goes back out, and then one in the afternoon flies in and goes back out.
Yeah.
So I got there like 2 hours before my flight. There was nobody there. No TSA, no agents. It said we'll be here at 2 or whatever, 2:30.
Yeah.
I'm like, there was in an airport. And
I
this
would-
was pre-COVID. That's just how they are.
The strangest airport experience I ever had was when we played a tournament in the Maldives
I was gonna say that was
in
like,
October.
my exact same answer.
And you flew into the like main island, Mali?
Yeah, Mali.
Which is like the capital of the Maldives.
Okay.
And that's the only international airport like in the country. So you would fly there, and then we had to take like a 20-minute like propeller plane to get to another island. And then from that island we had to take a boat that went to the like island that the tournament was actually on. But when we came back, the like regional airport that we fly into before the boat, I mean, there's like 4 people working there, and it's just like this tiny little propeller plane, and like you basically are like throwing your own bags onto the plane. Like
That's awesome.
it was pretty. That was a wild experience.
What do you think? Even let's say you get to your late 30s, right, and you retire from beach volleyball. I look at it and go, the amount of stories you're going to have of your life. You've been to Maldives, Turk Caicos, Paris, all these places that 95% of the people in the world have never been to.
Mm-hmm.
That's you're going to have the experiences that.
Yeah. I mean, and even after like we're done, like for me, I would definitely like to continue to travel and see different places. Like we're not going to get to go see every country whenever we're traveling and doing this. Like getting to see as many of those countries and doing those cool experiences as possible to me is really, really awesome. So even after, I'm excited about that. And then even thinking about it now, I don't even like, I'm like thinking about like who I like talk to, and when I talk to people, like almost everything I talk about now is just those experiences from traveling. I don't even like talk about anything else. It's all about those experiences and those stories. And it's this crazy time that I went and did this, and oh my gosh, we almost didn't make our flight here. So it's just all those different kinds of stories now that are the like things that I even like stick out in my head whenever I talk to people. That's
what do you think you guys would want to do?
Playing,
is it coaching? Is it consulting?
I would love to. So when I was in college in Cincinnati, there's an indoor sand facility that's about 20 minutes from downtown Cincinnati, And I basically like lived at that building when I was in college because I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I'd never seen an indoor sand facility, but it's just, they have like 7 courts, 7 indoor, 7 outdoor, and then like a bar in the middle of them. So they're open year round, even when it's, you know, there'd be 2 feet of snow outside and we'd be playing beach volleyball. And they're pretty popular all over the Midwest now, and Michigan doesn't have any. So my kind of long-term plan would be to start something like that in Grand Rapids, where I'm from, and just kind of run that and then see kind of how much I can grow beach volleyball in that area. Just because like the community of people around Grandstands, which is the facility in Cincinnati, it's just so cool how many people, like I never would have met a lot of my best friends if Grandstands hadn't been a facility. So it was just cool for me to kind of see how just like a building with beach volleyball courts in it can like bring so many different people together.
Yeah, and cool. I think kind of similar to him, I'm not exactly like set on a plan as what, but I do know for me, like growing the game in some sort of capacity, whether it be through coaching or trying to help, but being involved in volleyball is definitely like in the cards, and trying to help grow that game. And I know I didn't have a lot of opportunities growing up compared to like a lot of like, even now I'm already seeing it just from me being like one of the first people to do it from Louisiana, and the opportunities increasing for like that next generation of volleyball players. For me, I think is probably where I want to go, in somewhere in that direction.
It's cool to hear younger people realize where you're at, you know, because Michigan, my wife's from Fraser, just north of Detroit, you know, and grew up her whole life, and then Louisiana, same thing. And that's why I was joking. That's like the hotbeds of beach volleyball are not Grand Rapids, Michigan, or
that's kind of, I mean, it's, I think, you know, not a main factor, but one of the things I like so much about, you know, being teammates with Evan is that we both kind of have that, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a chip on our shoulder, but just kind of that same, like a similar backstory where it's like, we're not your like born and raised in the South Bay kind of guys. Like I think we talked about this the other day, but like anything that we've done, we had to make that happen for ourselves. There was never any sort of like pipeline or structure for us. So it was like, I just learned the game by basically teaching myself, and, you know, was fortunate to have a lot of really good people around me that have been able to, you know, help me grow this whole time.
But you're also a workhorse.
Yeah. I would say
because every time I go to the beach, he's at the beach working.
Well, even during during COVID as well, like the fact that, you know, maybe not the brightest idea to always go to the tournaments that we did, but just like we wanted to play tournaments. We didn't care if they were in Iowa in a cornfield. Like we just wanted to play volleyball.
Build it and they will come.
So whereas a lot of people kind of took that year and a half or 2 years and kind of took it off because there weren't any, you know, there weren't any Manhattan Beach Opens during that year. I feel like it was a good opportunity for us to like grow as players, whereas other players maybe didn't have that same mindset towards it.
Yeah, I think we almost have that opposite mentality where like right now, like in just kind of looking like professionally, like how like people like structure their schedules and stuff, and like coaches now are kind of like telling us, we're like, hey, y'all need to like back off practice. Actually, y'all are practicing too much. Like we need to make your like sure your bodies are good to go, and like thinking about like the sport that way is way different than us just being like, we love playing volleyball, so we're just going to go play more volleyball, because that's all we've done our whole lives is just play more volleyball. Yeah,
it's been an interesting transition over the last like 3 or 4 months, I would say, especially once we kind of got into the like USA volleyball system, and we have, you know, some people that have gone through all of this before that are kind of guiding us, and it's like, it's a weird dichotomy sometimes, because like I got this far by just playing as much volleyball as I possibly can, and now you're telling me like, maybe don't practice twice a day every day, and I'm like, but that's how I got to this spot in the first place. But it's been really nice. Like we kind of got into the USAV system back like the spring of this past year, and just having that like guidance and structure, at least for me, it definitely actually feels like I'm like a professional beach volleyball player now, because you have kind of like the facilities and the team around you, and it's not like all dependent on you to do everything.
That's going to be interesting for you guys.
Yeah.
Because as you get older, I'm sure you'll hear it from Hayden, or your body just starts not feeling good.
Well, I think we both already felt that a little bit.
Oh, just wait.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better.
Yeah. No, it was that. Hayden was another guy too. He was like you can't go to play some random tournament every single weekend. And I was like, but I kind of want to. And he was like, just play the tournaments that are important to you.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, maybe I can do that. But it was interesting to see how like he was able to take care of himself so well, and like how much time he put into taking care of himself outside of just practicing.
Because it's not just playing.
Right.
It's learning how to sleep. I mean, jet lag. When you go to Mexico City, you're going to be up a mile and a half. You'll be higher than Denver.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get? I mean, I was going to ask you, like, does the ball feel differently at altitude?
100%.
Yeah.
It's
right?
crazy. Like, I think so. I don't think there's any statistics behind it on the beach side because I don't think we play in enough places with altitude. But if you go look at BYU on the indoor side, statistically, opponents that go to BYU have like significantly miss more serves like percentage wise than any other place that they play throughout the entire year. So like I think that's really interesting because I mean it is very different because the ball just like it like hits your hand and you just feel like it flies.
Yeah.
Also just kills me breathing.
I'm
like I get out there and I'm 2 plays in and I can't catch my breath. I'm like, wow, this is not great.
That's why a lot of the MMA fighters I used to do jiu-jitsu and I'd go to Denver and I feel like I never trained in my life.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll be right back. You know?
It's
like,
definitely an advantage
they
for those people that live up there.
They would go up to altitude as much as they could to train up there just to kind of get used to.
Yeah. I mean, it's similar to why everybody lives in Hermosa that plays beach volleyball. It's because our sand is so deep. So when we get used to playing in deep sand that you can't jump out of, then all of a sudden you go to any other beach
it's gonna
pretty
be
much in the world, and it's
Hermosa.
You move faster and you jump.
I knew there was a reason why I sucked at beach volleyball in Hermosa.
You just kind of go to Florida.
Yeah, go to Florida.
Shallow sand, you'll feel like great.
I was gonna say because that makes a big difference too, right? I mean, what kind of sand it is.
Huge difference. Yeah, I would say that's probably a bigger determining factor than just about anything else. Maybe wind, I would say. If you get a super windy day, you're going to have a lot of teams win that you don't normally have win. But if you get out on super jumpy sand, like it's just a completely different game because everybody is able to have angles and hit every single ball and like move on top of the sand. Whereas you come to Hermosa and play and it's like everybody just gets knocked down a foot basically.
That's awesome. I never knew that.
Yeah.
I did a clinic with a case beer. And the McKibbins, and I was like, oh my God, I'm dying. I couldn't jump.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know I'm old, but
that's one of our secrets when we do the Better at Beach camps with Mark in Florida is our sand is really jumpy. So everybody feels good when they leave. They're like, yeah, I can hit now. And we're like, yeah, it was all the coaching. And I'm like, it was really just the hard sand.
Oh, that's a secret. We'll cut that out.
Yeah, cut that one out.
We won't tell them. What's the most influential cities you've visited? Not that you've lived at, but like you visited, and why?
Go ahead.
You want me to start? Okay, I actually will probably have to say influential wise.
This is a Mark Burke question.
Yeah.
I told him when I interviewed him, I'm going to use it. So now I'm using it.
I like it. I think the most influential city would have to actually be where I went to college, was in Harrogate, Tennessee.
Okay.
It's about an hour north of Knoxville. So,
my daughter's in Morristown. So
okay, yeah, it's 45 minutes away. Yeah. So she's right by Carson Newman. And I think it's just because everything I've ever been used to has been like in New Orleans area, like before that, or like in some kind of a beach capacity. I've understood like beach towns and stuff like that, but going to like a rural town in like where there's nothing really, and just I think I really grew to appreciate nature there. I really like grew to appreciate people more. And like the connections that we create with people, and just like development wise, I think it was huge for me. I mean, obviously college is also a huge developmental part of your life, but living there for 4 years, it just gave me a very different perspective on life and how I thought about people, because you go and you're in a rural town in Tennessee, you think like everybody's a bunch of rednecks, and they're all like dumb, but like just meeting people, talking to people, getting to know people, and getting to know the area just opened my eyes to a lot.
That's cool though, especially at a young age to figure that out.
Yeah, I would say like in that capacity, Cincinnati was definitely
Same way.
like a huge thing for me, just because of all of the relationships that I was able to make there, and a lot of people that still support me to this day are kind of from that Cincinnati beach volleyball community.
Yep.
In Michigan, everything's a little bit more, the community there's a little bit more like fragmented, because you have like 3 or 4 beaches that some people go to. You don't have that like one core
one
facility
location,
like
yeah.
you did in Cincinnati. So I feel almost more at home around like the Cincinnati beach volleyball people, whereas people in Michigan don't really know me as well as the Cincinnati
But
people
if you
do.
build your building,
Right.
they will come.
There you go. That's the plan.
That's pretty good.
I would say short term, when we went to Tlaxcala, Mexico this past year,
Okay.
it was one of the first times that I'd been out of the country, but I hadn't been to like a not kind of touristy place, and Tlaxcala isn't really a touristy place.
Yeah.
So it was pretty mind opening to me to just go, away from Mexico City and just kind of see how people
Really
live
live.
outside
Yeah.
of like the places that you see on TV.
Yeah.
And just kind of like makes you appreciate what you have a lot more when you see these people that live off of
You find-
$5 or $10 a day.
You find yourself telling people from where you live back home that California is not all beaches and
Yes.
palm trees.
Yes.
Because when I go to the rodeo, they're like, your territory is California and Hawaii. I have Hawaii as part of my account. And I'm like, for one, there's a lot of cowboys on Hawaii.
Yeah.
A lot of big, huge ranches.
There's
Huge ranches.
A ton of huge ranches here.
And here, yeah, well, yeah, the whole central.
Like I
I mean,
say.
you drive you get like to Santa Clarita to Sacramento, it's all farms and ranches.
Yeah.
That's a 300-mile clip.
Yeah. We drove from LA to San Francisco for a clinic one time, and you get like an hour north of LA, and you're like, this does not look like California anymore.
Yeah. It's hard to tell people because they just, like you were saying, like you go to Mexico City and you think that's Mexico, but
Mhm.
it's really not. It's like going to Puerto Vallarta,
Exactly.
and we drove up to Puerto Nuevo.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, now we're out. Now we're out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the cool things, going back to like why it's so cool to travel with the World Tour, is because it brings you to those places whether you would want to go there or not. And it's like, well, I have to go to this place, and then it opens your eyes to like all of this
Everything,
other
yeah.
area, like what that country is actually like, and not just the pretty part that everybody else sees.
Yeah.
I think, and it's going to sound weird because I think a lot of people, especially on the world tour, like kind of despise the place. In China, a lot of people don't like traveling to China just because there's a lot of issues traveling there, especially language barrier, like cleanliness of air and stuff like that. Food, there's just a lot of issues there, but I am like almost kind of excited just to like experience how different that is outside of like, like the difficulties of traveling.
Have you guys played in Japan yet?
No, we haven't played anywhere in Asia. I guess Maldives is kind of Asia.
Yeah, Maldives.
Maldives is the closest that we've gotten. Yeah.
Because everybody I've talked to says Tokyo is like the best place.
Yeah.
It's the number one place that's been, when I ask that question, it's the number one place.
I think if I could travel anywhere right now, not for volleyball, it would probably be Japan.
Yeah. I mean,
That's about the only place
said
on
it's
my
clean.
list.
The people are super friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Tokyo has 36 million people in it.
Yeah.
Which is everybody in the state of California is crammed in this little
Crazy.
place. So you might not like it.
Yeah.
I don't mind visiting those places for like a couple days, but like we were in Dubai for 2 weeks, and I was like, all right, this is too much.
Yeah.
But like
Well,
if you like see
we
it
wanna
for
get out.
a couple days, I'm like, all right, this is cool. Now let's get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they said there's no trash anywhere.
Yeah.
Like people pick up their own trash, and that's like, oh my gosh, imagine that here. Right? And
crazy.
Toronto's really clean too.
Yeah, we
Toronto,
used to go to Toronto occasionally. I played hockey growing up, so the Hockey Hall of Fame is in Toronto. So we used to been up there once or twice to the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's a cool city. Like I wish I would have gone there more when I lived in
I think
Michigan.
the World Tour's going there this year. Is it there? Or is it? I think they might be
it's
Edmonton and Quebec.
Edmonton and Montreal, I think.
Montreal will be fun. Edmonton, a little bear.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be out there. You'll be fine. Bring the boots.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. Do you guys? Why do you wear the boots? I'm just curious.
So
I wear them all the time.
Yeah, I think we kind of came up with the name. Both of us kind of like, I mean, we're just like really big country music people.
Okay.
We're both kind of from different area than like the traditional California, and I think we came up with the name like the Beach Cowboys, just kind of representing that
Not
outside
being-
of California.
Gotcha.
You think about also like going back to like the old days, right? And you think about cowboys like coming out west, and like that's kind of our journey, right?
Gotcha.
Like we're kind of like on our journey out west, trying to figure out our life, trying to make things work. So I think it's a little more representative. Of
I
just
don't
kind
mind.
of
Like
our
I wear
life
my stuff
journey.
all the time, right?
Yeah.
And I get the looks. Yeah, I'm like, you know.
So I like it.
I don't care
I've been
either.
starting to
Yeah.
wear stuff more and more too, because it's like, I just like how it looks, and I'm like, this looks cool. People
well,
notice it. So for us, it's
and it's
like
super comfortable too.
Yeah.
Well, that's just it. That's what people don't understand about boots. Once you break them in, even if we were the same size, your boot wouldn't fit right on me.
Mm-hmm.
Just because your foot's shaped differently.
Yeah. It's just like we want to give something that people can get behind more than just like, oh yeah, it's Evan and Logan, right? It's like it's something a little bit more memorable. It makes it a little bit more fun. You know,
so are you gonna do 6-man with the cowboy hats, or what's going on?
No, I don't think you've never played 6-man, have you? We almost always have like
Something
an
going
I
on.
would
AVP.
say Atlanta is during that.
Yeah, it's always been.
I never
during
go
6-man.
because it's just nuts. I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I've seen pictures and I'm like,
I avoid it.
I don't know how to. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this.
It's hard enough because I'll ride my bike when you guys are playing at Hermosa or Manhattan, and lock it up and walk down. But I'm like, that's nutty. That's a different level.
Yeah, yeah.
But the hats would be cool.
They would be cool. I know.
We have played a couple tournaments, like fun tournaments, like with like trying to play with a hat on.
Yeah,
it's not easy.
It's not easy because I mean, like like the instant
but if you
that
show up in it, that's all.
Oh,
that matters.
That's
all
what
that
we
matters.
do.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what your color is. We have a light up blue cowboy hat.
He saw it.
I saw that in like your story that one time that you
Yeah.
posted. I was like, I think I might need that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man, I could get that for you.
Yeah.
I just let a girl borrow it she went to something in downtown LA, it was a disco.
Yeah.
So I gave her the pink one.
Yeah, because I played a tournament in Denver this year with Sean Cook. He's like a Scottish kid that been in Hermosa about 3 or 4 years now. And it was 4th of July. We thought it'd be funny because he's not American if we went like full on like USA explosion. So we went to Walmart the night before and we found this like a crazy red, white, and blue eagle that was like playing a guitar, and it said
Perfect.
like, I don't remember what it said. And then we're like, what if we just like made these like cut off like
Sleeveless.
crop top?
Yeah.
And so we did that with two different shirts that weekend in Denver. And like we got 3rd in that tournament, and we felt like we won the tournament
It
because
wasn't a good
everybody
look,
was coming up to us and be like, "We
It
loved
wasn't
your
a good
shirts! Like it was so fun!" And
They were joking.
yeah, they're like, we hated those guys.
The tiger stripe shorts. And
Yes,
the leopard.
yeah.
I saw that.
But yeah, it's just it makes it more fun as well. Like
Absolutely.
I think it's more fun for the fans too, right? Like you're more engaged and you can get behind something that's not just like, oh yeah, here's these two athletes.
And I told Mark, I've told everybody, all the players I talked to, I'm so shocked that the AVP doesn't market better, for the lack of a better word, because you can literally go here for free. Like I took all these pictures just as a fan, just literally go down, park,
and you're literally like these pictures you're taking. You're the first person next to the court. Like you're front row seats to it.
I'm watching for the balls, because when you're stuck in the camera, all of a sudden the ball, when you guys are warming up.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's when I don't take pictures too much.
I think it does. It makes it a little bit of, it's fun for us as well, though, just to kind of like try and tap into some sort of creative side because we know that like nobody else is going to market for us. So like we have to be the ones that are thinking creatively. Because
that's, I talked to Mark about this too, because you were talking about the marketing of the AVP. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you got good looking guys, good looking girls. It's like,
how can you go wrong?
Very, super approachable. I'm trying to think. I haven't met everybody, obviously, but I haven't met too many people that are rude.
I'd say there's a very, very short list of people that are like not very outgoing and friendly.
And there's difference. Like we sponsor a lot of cowboys, right? And they're cowboys. Like, I mean, from Montana, population 35, so being around thousands of people at the rodeo is a little awkward for them, and they don't like it. They like I have one guy, he goes, I'm a cowboy. I'll sign autographs because I have to, but I'd rather be roping right now.
It's like, I ain't talking to nobody.
Yeah. I mean, but yet when he gets in public, he's friendly and all that, but not. So, I mean, I'm sure it's the same way where people they might be awkward in public, but they're really good at volleyball.
I think a lot of it is just like so many teams are very like robotic in the way they are on the court.
Yeah.
And it just, they'll make a cool play and it'll just be like,
Okay.
straight face, high five, go back. And
That won't be you guys.
right. No, that is
definitely
not
not my MO.
Yeah. So I think just realizing that, part of our value is to be entertainers. You know what I mean? I think that's something that a lot of people miss. It's like they think you either have to be entertaining or you have to play good volleyball. Whereas I think that there is that happy medium where it's like, if I'm playing good volleyball, I'm going to make it entertaining for everybody watching as well.
I think that's what people were endeared with Casey Patterson.
Yes. Yep.
I mean,
he's like, so good at it.
But he was also like, when my show first started, I think I had Mass McKibben on.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started commenting. Casey was commenting on my page and all that. I'm like, okay, it's kind of cool. Olympian, I said, would you be on the show? Yeah, I'd love to. Like, he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
But his love for the sport and wanted to grow just like you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I think successful people have that's moniker.
Right. I think some people just kind of sit back and they want the AVP to like promote me. But it's like, do something to make yourself promotable.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people don't necessarily grab onto quite as much.
I kind of feel like it's musicians, right? There's some musicians that go, I play the guitar really well.
Mm-hmm. So
well that I'm going to go tour. And then some guys are like, well, I've got to market myself to get on other tours, right? So there's got to be guys that were like, and girls, that say, hey, I'm going to get really good at volleyball. I'm going to be the best volleyball player. I don't know how to talk well. I don't like interviews and conversations and all that, but I'm going to be the best volleyball player in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's people like that.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, like, we still have that, like thought behind it, but, like, I think there's maybe once in a generation kind of, like, person that, like, can just be really good and then not have to, like, have the other part, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because... Yeah, like Phil.
Yeah.
Like Phil never really had to market himself, had to do anything because he was so good.
Yeah.
That like the volleyball spoke for itself. But like for the most part, like you have to provide some kind of other value there that's gonna like make people like, oh, he is good at volleyball. He's not just like
right.
Because like if you get lost in like the shuffle of all the other people on tour, like no one's gonna be like, oh yeah, you're good at volleyball. Or like, oh yeah, you're just another person on tour.
I'm gonna say, kind of if anyone's still listening, they're fans, right? So. It seems like there's so little separating the good teams, the top 6 to 8 to 10, 12 teams. And you can even get a 16 seed that gets into the finals, right? Mm-hmm. There's so little separating, just a few aces or a few service errors that if you don't commit, that could be the difference. It's so weird that you guys are so, like, I watch volleyball and I'm like, I don't know who's going to win this.
Yeah.
Like, it's the 2 seed versus the 8 seed, but the 8 seed's been playing really good. There's so little separating you guys. I think more in the men's than the women's.
I think a lot of it just comes down to like the aspect of like how consistently you play well, because everybody plays well at some point.
Yeah.
It's just the very top teams. It's like they play their best volleyball 75% of the time, whereas the 10 seed might play their best volleyball 50% of the time.
But that's so little.
But if you get your 50% and they're on their 25% that they're not playing well, like, you're going to win.
Yeah.
So it's just that little bit of difference between, almost, everybody can serve one like crazy serve, but then it's like, do you go back and do you miss the next serve or do you just get the next serve in? And it right. That can be the difference so many times.
That's what I'm saying. Because then obviously if you get down 3 points, you have to change, maybe be a little more aggressive or do whatever you guys do, try a harder serve, a jump serve, whatever. But if you're even and you're going back and forth, then you might go, well, let's do a float serve here or whatever, a higher percentage serve.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just that 1 or 2 points.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. And even the games, if you watch the games with like a really keen eye, even a set that ends like 21-12 or something like that, you can still pick out 1 or 2 plays when it was like 7-7.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it just
that 2 points that made it an 8-point gap at the end. They're still really close because the next set will be 23-25, right? Yeah. And it's like, how does one team, how do you win 21-11 and then you lose the next set 21-15? And it's just like, it's those 1 or 2 points that you lose focus for a second or something just unlucky and doesn't go your way. That
how do you change that? I mean, I know that's the.
I think
Maybe you don't want your
so,
secret sauce
like,
out there.
I
but-
think most of the difference between those top teams and like the middle tier teams actually comes mentally. So like, because like that's how it changes, right? So
Yeah.
consistency, I think, can kind of be a mental thing, right? So we lose a point, and give up 3 points after that. That's not consistent. We lose a point though, we reset in between the next point, and then we get the next point back. That 21-12 he was talking about,
Yeah.
7-7. Instead of them getting 2 points in a row, now we're just 8-8 instead of it being 9-7.
Right.
They don't feel like they have momentum. They aren't feeling good about themselves. And then it's just more of a battle and a grind at that point. So like I think the consistency can kind of come from resetting mentally, right? And then riding the highs and then like trying to like minimize the lows. So like we're trying to stay even as much as we can. We don't want to like have these big ups and downs. But if we can like get the ups to go up and then really try and not have any like valleys, then that's where like the consistency part comes in, and that's where you start creating the separation.
Do you think that's why, like when I used to watch Phil play, you couldn't tell if he was
emotion
real
at all.
happy or real sad, or there's a couple of
There's a lot of people that are like
there's
that.
a couple guys, right?
Yeah.
But then there's Casey Patterson's. I mean, you're out there, right?
Yeah.
I think the thing though, when you watch Casey, he still doesn't have the lows. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, the impressive thing about him is that like he'll have a couple bad, like he'll get blocked 4 times in a row, and there'll be that half second like anger, but then it's immediately back. All of his energy is always spent like pushing the high higher and not worrying about the low. Like that's always been one of my biggest difficulties is like when I get down, if I miss a couple side outs, like I'll spend energy on my negative thoughts instead of being like my floor is going to stay here, and then I'm just going to keep trying to push the ceiling. When something does happen, it's like all of my energy is going to go like I sided out after 3 tries, and that's going to be all of my energy instead of like letting that kind of push the floor.
I just
down.
had that talk 2 days ago with a player I used to coach in lacrosse, and we were talking about that because I had one episode that I interviewed. It was like 14,000 views, and I had like 2 bad comments, and they were really crappy comments, but I still remember those bad comments.
Yeah,
out of 14,000 views, right? So how do you not focus on that and stay with the 13,998 people that liked it?
Yeah, I think so. The way I like to describe it, since like I am like a player that plays with a lot of that fire, I like to say like I want to try and play with emotion and not play emotionally. Because if we're playing with emotion, that just means like we're letting it out, right? And like whenever something good happens, I'm gonna let everyone know I'm like happy about it. Yeah. But I'm not gonna like play emotionally to where my emotions are controlling my actions.
Well, don't let him hide in you, right?
Yeah. So I think
blame
that's
him for that.
Yeah.
I think that's where like the difference comes in. A lot of people think that like whenever you play with fire, like you're gonna automatically have those highs and lows. Whereas like if you're like actually thinking about it in the moment, you're letting like the good happen in the moment, and then when the bad happens in the moment, you're more figuring out how do I minimize this. Yeah, so like it's like a conscious effort in your head. Like whenever I'm out there, I'm not just like screaming and doing whatever just because. Like it's all like conscious, like I'm letting it happen versus not letting it happen.
You're choosing that instead of just letting it passively happen to you. Yeah.
Because that's like I said. I mean, I thought you were going to win. I was in Chicago when your buddy got the cramps. Yeah. I literally thought you guys were playing great because I could watch it at home. It's all on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, that's cool, you know. And all of a sudden, I literally didn't know he got cramps because I'd be going around the house, and all of a sudden, I'm like, they're down, you know.
Yeah. And
then I'm watching a little bit, and he's not. It wasn't it was like just seemed off. I just thought maybe he was sore or whatever. But you guys are that close. I mean, between the two of you.
Yeah.
And it could be a great year for you guys.
Yeah,
that's
it's very exciting. It's just cool to it's easy, like especially in, I guess it's probably every sport, but it's easy to kind of like get caught up in the moment that you're in. And one of my buddies posted something on Instagram the other day that was like, it was like a video of him like hitting a ball into the net or something, and it was like played like not super happy about how I played at the AVP last week, blah blah blah, and then it was like a picture of him as a little kid, and it was like the little kid was like, wait, we play AVP, and it was like I actually really liked that because it was like taking that moment to kind of look at, 2 years ago, if I was like, yeah, we're playing in Elite, the best tournament I can possibly play in Elite 16 in Doha next week, it would have just been like, it's awesome that we have gotten to this
opportunity.
The opportunity to get to it. And I think personally for me, sometimes like I get so caught up in like, I should have done better. If we would have scored 2 more points, we would have, won another match, blah, blah, blah. And it's easy to do that without being like, we've like come a long ways from when we first started.
Well, I look at it and go, and I've talked to some musicians about, and I talked to a movie director too, where it like you look at that picture, I look at the picture and go, okay, it looks like he's getting right. And you could be like, oh, my right hand should be a little higher. My back shoulder should be back. Oh, I should be looking cut line there. I need more height, and like film directors get real critical when they watch movies. They're like, oh, why did he shoot like that? Oh, the lighting's bad there. I should have backlit there. Musicians hear things and they go, oh, they could have dropped down to a D there. And you guys, it's kind of like appreciating, because as a fan, I just go, holy shit.
Yeah. I think whenever I watch myself play, it's like a lot more difficult to like just watch it and like appreciate it. So like very critical. And then like if I'm not attached at all, right? If I'm just watching a match and like, oh, like because for the most part, like whenever we're watching another thing, it's like we're trying to scout somebody or trying, you know what I mean? So like you're trying to be critical. I think like the cool part for me, and it's like I got to do it because my sister, she plays and she's a senior in high school, and like getting to go to her games and just trying to like watch and enjoy without like being critical or trying to like, because like a lot of people are like, well, what is she doing wrong? Like, what does she need to do better? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to know. I'm here to support my sister. I'm not here to do anything else. So like my volleyball brain is off right now. I'm trying to shut this down. I just want to enjoy this.
The brother brain's on.
Yeah. And want to be there for her. So like that was like trying to do that is really cool. Because I mean,
tough though, right?
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough.
Do you have the same problem when you watch volleyball?
Yeah, I mean, I can still watch it and be like, I guess I just appreciate the good plays now more than I used to, because you can once you've watched a sport enough, like what's difficult and what's not. You know what I mean? Like if I'm watching lacrosse or something, I don't know like what's a good, or soccer's a good one. I never watched soccer, so when I watch soccer, there's probably all these little intricacies that I don't know about that are going on while I'm watching it, and I'm just like, the ball's going that way and now it's going this way, and I'm like, but once you've really like dove as far into the sport as we have, like you see the little things that happen on every single play. And I think volleyball, the tough thing about like broadcasting volleyball is it's a very like slow motion friendly sport. And I think if you don't have that like replay in slow motion, nobody really sees all the little things that go into every play. And once you see that, like,
well, if you would just not hit so hard,
it'd
be a lot easier to follow the ball. That's just a tip for you guys to share. Make it more
be more watchable by not hitting the ball.
Be more viewer friendly. Don't hit so hard.
Yeah, no, it's like I still like watching it, but it's now that we're playing World Tour, it's like pretty much every team in the world now we're watching it from more of a scouting position. Whereas even a year ago, before we started playing World Tour, it was like I would watch the World Tour finals and just be like, wow, these guys are amazing, and not really watch it as like he hit a cut shot out of this and did the high line out of this. So it's just crazy to be watching like some of the best teams in the world and being like,
I'm going to play.
I'm no longer watching this as a fan. I'm watching this because I'm about to play these guys.
I think it's funny, like, and it's just like very applicable to like right now. There's a clip going around of like this one team, and like I've had like a ton of friends from back home and college post it. And I just like looked at it and I was like, wait, this is the guys we're supposed to be playing like first round next week in the qualifier. And I thought it was hilarious because it's just like literally exactly what he was talking about.
How much time do you spend scouting?
A lot of it because
you don't know where you're going to play.
We don't usually find out who we're going to play until like 7:00 the night before.
The World Tour, I think, is a lot easier too because you're playing a lot less matches, whereas like the AVP, it's a little more difficult because you playing 2-3 matches in a day.
Have you guys ever played, like you sit there and you go, okay, well, I'm going to play Crab and Bourne. but then they lose. So now you're playing somebody you didn't really scout, and now you're like, ah.
Yep, that happens all the time, and it's
because you think they're gonna win, but then they don't. Something happens.
Yeah, that's why at AVPs at this point, like we've played everybody that plays AVPs so many times. It's rare for me to be like, oh, this team just won. I'm going to go back and watch their match from 3 weeks ago. I mean, I might a little bit, but most of it is like
one team, the 16 seed. The guy had the long hair.
Long hair, 16.
Like really long curly hair. Looked like an 80s rocker.
Jake and Hagen in Hermosa?
Yeah, it was Jake and Hagen.
Yeah, Jake and Hagen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
I just wonder, like here's a 16 seed or whatever that came up through a qualifier, and now they're.
The thing is, like, I think, especially volleyball, like the community is so small. Like, we've played that team before. We already know who they are, so it's not even like it's that big of a surprise, right?
There's
like,
nobody you haven't played. Right?
Pretty much. Yeah, it would be
especially us because
rare.
we've played so many places across the country. Yeah. Like I feel like I have people come up to me all the time, be like, "Hey, what does this person do?" And like just because they know that I've played against, like, everybody. Yeah, I was gonna say because they know that I've played against them in some capacity before because we've played in the Southeast, Midwest, Northeast. It's
kind of the road dog thing.
Yeah, we've played everywhere. So we kind of, even if like it was a couple of years ago, we've played them at some point probably.
How if you played somebody 3 or 4 years ago? I mean, your game has changed in 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean there's not a lot that you can really do with somebody that you played 4 years ago. I mean, you can just be like, unless somebody has some ridiculous tendency where it's like this guy hits a cut shot 90% of the time. But usually, like, everybody's skills are going to change, especially if they're playing with a different partner. People are going to play different. Yeah. That's why sometimes the best scouting is just like, okay, we're going to play the winner of this game. Let's just watch this match and see what happens, and we'll go from there.
Because being a lefty, is it different for you? Does it, as far as a blocker?
So whenever I don't really scout like how they're gonna, like, I know how most teams are already probably gonna play me defensively, so it's more like, okay, like tendency wise, this is what they do. But I do think teams struggle more trying to play against lefties because lining up on the block is a little bit more difficult because they're not used to seeing it as often. And I have a kind of a little bit different of an arm swing than most other people, so it kind of throws people off.
Yeah, it's cool. It's pretty hilarious on the world tour though, because all the other countries, like when we played some of our first tournaments on the world tour in October, and I played one match where I was like rolling the ball high line, and this team was just running like a 4 block, so they're just like running to the line over and over.
I know nothing what you just said, right?
Yeah, that's okay. Some people might know it. They did. Basically, the team like had my number, and they just kept running the right play. And then the next like 2 weeks, every match we were playing, every team was trying to do the exact same thing because they just watched this one match. And I was like, man, these people really did their homework. But then I just like, oh, they're going to do this the whole time? I'll just do the opposite thing. But it was pretty funny because I had one game where it was just like, I got beat on this play every single time. And now every other country is running this same play. Yeah,
so at that point, how hard is it to switch up? Because y'all have tendencies, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Just as long as I like approached knowing that they're probably going to do this, I wasn't getting caught off guard anymore, so I was able to beat it.
Got it.
But it was just funny to see how like routine it became. They're like, stop doing that.
Let me score. Yeah. Let me block.
Yeah, it's the world tour it's just a different animal. Like you're not familiar with the people, you don't speak the same language as the people you're playing, after a 20-hour flight or whatever. So
well, and that jet lag and everything else. Jet lag sucks.
Yeah.
That's probably the worst thing for the athletes I've spoken to. And going east, like Maldives, was hard for them. Because Todd Eldridge, who was in the Olympics in Tokyo, he went there like 2 weeks early just so he could kind of get everything straightened out. Because going back, he was from Michigan, actually, Detroit. And so it was, what is it, 18-hour difference and all that in the morning time.
That was tough for us. It was an exact 12-hour flip.
Yeah.
So it's like your entire day is flipped. Like your day is night, your night is day. So I got there a little bit earlier than him, and I think it takes a little bit longer for me to get acclimated. Yeah. So it was like good. But it's tough. And then like you get back here and you gotta start all over again. And then you do it all over again while you're in the States. And then by the time that you're probably back on that schedule, you're probably traveling to go overseas again. So it's like living in that constant. Too, right? It's difficult.
Yeah. I think jet lag is, people just go, oh, you're so lucky. That's part of the you're so lucky crowd.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're like, it's morning, it's night. You know, when you guys practice, here, this is my other, because I'm on the beach 3 or 4 times a week when it's not raining, right? And I always see
that really weird time in California where we actually got rain for like almost an
I
entire
know.
month.
Like, I just saw one of the roller. He's a professional roller skater, and I was talking to him because I hadn't seen him like 6 weeks between the rodeo and I went to Dallas, and then the rain and all that. But do you guys ever practice specific, i.e., your qualifiers are typically in the morning, right? But your championship matches are in the late afternoon. So do you ever try and practice for different, for the sunlight, wind? Do you ever go out specifically?
It's I would say not necessarily just based on like the time itself, because we could play a first round game that could start at 8 a.m. or we could play a first round game that starts at noon and you don't really know until the day before.
Yeah.
The wind is definitely a big thing. Like in Hermosa, if you go out at 8 a.m. every day, you will never play in the wind.
Yeah, there's no wind.
And if you go out at 3 p.m. every day, you'll play in the wind every single day.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have a little bit of a balance there.
That's what I'm saying. Do you
mix up the time a little bit? Yeah. Just because the wind is such like a huge factor when it gets windy, like if you can make that an advantage.
I always think like it's MMA fighters that I've talked to, they fight 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So because that's when their main card matches are.
Yeah. So if they train for 8, 9, 10 in the morning, and they're peaking out in that time frame, well, then their body's not used to it, so they start training later and later, knowing how their fight's going to be.
I think it's just like like you were saying, the tough part is our match times just can vary so much. So like,
but the championship match is almost always in the late afternoon.
Yes,
that's all matters.
Yeah. Yeah, I typically, even with jet lag, when we go over for long trips, I just kind of sleep whenever I'm tired. I don't worry about it quite as much as some people do, because it's like, for a lot of these games, like they're such big games to me that I'm gonna have the energy and the like excitement regardless of what my sleep has been like recently. Yeah. So usually if I get over there and it's 4 in the afternoon and I'm tired, I'll sleep. Yep. And eventually I just have always found that I kind of, it might take me an energy drink or 2 at some point, but like I get back onto the level that I need to be at.
Yeah. Well, I think that's key for athletes to kind of understand. If you only practice at 8 in the morning, though, are you really ready for the wind and the late sun in the championship match? Versus, I think it's a mentality too, right? Like, I need to get used to playing at this time because I plan on playing this time on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think you guys will be there this year.
I hope so. That's what we're shooting for.
So what's the best way for my listeners to follow you guys? Is it Instagram, Twitter, Facebook?
Yeah, Instagram is definitely the best way.
Okay.
Mine is Evan Cory Volley, and then
mine is Logan Michael Webber on Instagram. Yeah. We're also starting a Beach Cowboys TikTok.
Are you really?
Which should be getting up here pretty soon.
Yeah, so we'll do that, and then we'll probably do a little bit of YouTube stuff as well, so I can try and stream some matches. I'm gonna try and get it to where we're live on YouTube for that.
Are you gonna be playing in boots? That's what I want to know.
Oh man. That might be that would be a tough one. Maybe some really that hard packed sand we were talking about. We could do
Hermosa. I'm talking deep sand.
Hermosa. That would actually be a good TikTok video.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we could just play some Morgan Wallen, sand in my boots.
Sand done. It's our first TikTok done.
There we go.
I should get credit for that. I'll have to sell you some boots cheap, because you'll ruin them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just get some scrub boots.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
I need to.
We'll definitely have to talk to you though, so we can up the wardrobe.
Yeah.
For the year.
You're fine.
I got these are Cody James. These are good.
How old are those?
I got these for Christmas, so these are new.
Wow, you've been wearing them a lot.
Yeah, they're a little weathered already. I like them a lot. So.
I'm just looking at the outsole here. That's what I look at. It's kind of like you guys with boots, right? Like I look at boots and totally different than how you guys.
Yeah,
because it's like,
and we look at volleyball totally different than you.
Yeah, exactly. I look at ball and go, yeah.
He's just criticizing my boots right now.
No, I'm saying you wear them. You wear them, so it's not bad. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I was literally thinking, I was like, I wonder if he's gonna like critique my hat. Like, is my hat not cool enough? Maybe I should wear my hat. But this is not.
Yeah, hats are fine.
Hats are good.
Awesome.
Yeah, good.
Hats are all good. I mean, I'm from California, right? So like, I didn't grow up. I grew up in Arizona, but I didn't grow up. I grew up in San Diego and Orange County and here. So it's been interesting.
Yeah.